You're listening to The Messy Middle, the podcast that holds space for all the in between moments. I'm your host, Mila, and if this is your first time listening, welcome. If you've already heard the trailer or intro, then you know this isn't a polished self help podcast. This is a space just to be, to sit with the truth of where you are right now. And today, we're talking about something that a lot of us are too scared to say out loud, that sometimes you just outgrow your family and it hurts, even when it's the right thing. All right, folks, so let's talk. There is a guilt that shows up when you decide to put space between yourself and family or loved ones. And it's not a light guilt. It's the kind of guilt that sits in your chest. And it's the kind of guilt that makes you second guess your decisions and your choices, every one that you make. And, people will remind you of titles like that's your mama, that's your daddy, those are your siblings, family is everything. They'll tell you that you're supposed to forgive and that you're supposed to forget, but almost nobody asks you what the cost is to stay close to those people or people like that. Because the truth is, some people didn't grow up surrounded by love and safety. They grew up under pressure. Um, they grew up with emotional neglect. They grew up being manipulated in ways that got excused as just part of the culture. And they learned that silence kept the house calm, even if that meant swallowing their own pain. And, they were told to call that home. And they carried those lessons into adulthood. So now you're older and you can finally see all of that for what it was. You notice the patterns that used to feel normal. You recognize how quickly you said yes when every part of you wanted to say no. You understand now that biting your tongue to keep the peace wasn't peace at all, it was survival. And that growth that comes with that awareness is real. But growth is complicated, right? It pulls you in two different directions at once. Um, a part of you still cares, and you maybe even miss that person at times if you are not in close proximity physically to that person. And another part of you knows that being in those same rooms around those same people forces you into a version of yourself that you've worked way too hard to outgrow. That tension, caring and keeping the distance at the same time, can be really exhausting. That's the middle ground that nobody really talks about. It's where you find yourself loving people you cannot be close to. It's grieving people who are still in the land of the living. Protecting your peace while also feeling guilty for needing to is messy. It's confusing and it's very lonely at times. Because while the world is quick to judge you for stepping away, few people actually understand what it takes, what it costs to stay. So here's what I want you to remember: distance can be sacred, space can be self respect. Choosing to keep your boundaries does not make you cold, it makes you careful. You don't owe anybody access to you just because you share DNA. That's not betrayal, that is survival. And that is the difference between repeating harm and protecting yourself from it. And let's clear this up. Guilt doesn't mean you're wrong. Guilt means you care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't wrestle with the decision. So instead of letting guilt control you, try to see it as proof that your heart is still open. You're not bitter. You're not heartless. You're just choosing not to confuse love with obligation. Because love without boundaries isn't really love, it is control. So if you've ever been told you're selfish for putting yourself first, listen to me closely and hear me clearly. Prioritizing your well-being over tradition is not selfish. It's sacred because every time you do it, you're telling the next version of yourself that her peace matters. You're telling your children or your future children that they don't have to inherit the same wounds you did. You're showing that cycles can be broken even if it hurts in the moment. And yes, it's going to hurt sometimes. You'll second guess yourself. You'll wonder if you could have stayed longer, forgiven quicker, tried harder. That's part of the process. But when those thoughts creep in, ask yourself this. If being close to someone costs you your sanity, your safety, or your self-respect, is it really closeness or is it bondage? If you're standing in that middle ground right now, grieving people who are still alive, loving people from a distance, protecting yourself, even while it stings, know that you're not the only one. More people than you think are making those same hard choices. There's no shame in that. Because the truth is, the boundaries you set today may be the very reason you can breathe easier tomorrow. The space you create may be the doorway to a life that finally feels like it belongs to you. And that's worth the guilt. That's worth the whispers. That's worth every uncomfortable choice you have to make. This is your life. This is your peace, your healing, and no one else gets to decide what it costs. Thank you all for being here with me today. If this episode gave you even a moment of clarity or made you feel seen, please share it with somebody. You may know somebody who needs to hear it, so please share it. And if you're navigating this kind of tension right now, please know that you're not wrong for choosing yourself. Okay? Come back next Tuesday. We will sit with another in-between space together. But until then, be gentle with yourself. Take care.